Hello there. Welcome to the show. As you can see, demonstrators are beginning to gather again in Ottawa this morning. Their trucks and vehicles are still on Wellington Street, right in front of Parliament Hill. They are protesting COVID-19 public health restrictions. Hundreds of people on foot joined those lineups of trucks that have filled the streets around Parliament Hill, and you can certainly see some of them now converging onto the hill. What was first seen as a truckers' protest against a cross-border vaccine mandate is now certainly about much more and involves more than just truckers, with some calling for the removal of all COVID-19 rules. Others, the dissolution of government. Earlier, I spoke with the Minister of Transport, Omar Alghabra, about the events unfolding in Ottawa. Mr. Nice to see you this morning.
Good morning, Rosemary.
Watching this unfold, this very large protest unfold, what message are you taking away? Are you hearing these people who are saying that they don't want mandates for truckers or for anyone else, for that matter? Many of them saying that.
First of all, thank you for having me on your show, Rosemary. Let me just say that it is my job and the government's job to always listen to all points of views and take them into account. I also want to say that I am relieved that the protest so far has been peaceful, and I hope that if the protest continues, that it continues to remain peaceful and respectful, although it's debated whether it's been respectful or not. I understand that many Canadians are frustrated with the ongoing pandemic, with the restrictions that had come with it. But also, most Canadians understand that these mandates, these restrictions are necessary to protect the health and safety of everyone, to protect our economy, to protect our supply chains. So, we've seen some troubling signs come out of the protests yesterday. But I know that some people are sympathetic to the voices of frustration, but others are really carrying alarming and troubling message through the protest.
Well, let me ask you about some of those specific examples that I imagine you're referring to. Desecrating the National War Memorial, the Terry Fox statue was also, they put signs and things in his hands. I've seen a number of swastikas just as I came into work. What is your response or your reaction to those elements? I'm not saying that that's the majority of people here, but that is present.
It's very alarming, Rosemary. Yesterday was the 5th anniversary of the Quebec mosque shooting. Yeah. Just few days ago, we commemorated the Holocaust Memorial Day. It is unacceptable to see swastika being flown anywhere, not to mention on Parliament Hill. It's unacceptable to see messages of hate. It's unacceptable to see the Confederate flag that represents racism being flown on Parliament Hill. These are troubling signs, and all of us as a society need to condemn it. I understand some people are frustrated, but we also knew that some of the organizers had a troubling past. In fact, their main ask is the overthrow of the government. So it's really disappointing to see that some politicians give credence and flirt with these voices.
Okay, let's go back to the issue that seemed to spark this. I'm not saying that is what the main protest is now. I think it's about a whole bunch of things, but it was the idea that truckers had to be vaccinated in order to come into this country. Is there any reason why that would not continue, Minister? Is there any consideration of that changing?
Rosemary, let me first remind your viewers is that the many truckers association, including the largest Canadian Trucking Association, has issued several statements distancing itself from that protest. And they actually recognize the importance of vaccination. They told us that almost 90% of truckers are fully vaccinated. Truckers, as you and I are speaking, are delivering goods for Canadians and crossing the borders, complying with all laws and regulations. So let me be very clear. I support truckers. I am grateful for Canadian truckers who are doing their job at a time of need. Second, these mandates are important for the public, for the health of Canadians, but also for the health of our economy. We've passed a mandate for all travelers last summer but we exempted truckers at the time. We wanted to give them more time. Last fall, we passed a mandate for the transportation sector. We exempted truckers, and now almost 100% of all workers of air, rail, and marine sectors are fully vaccinated. And then last November, we announced that by January, we will require truckers who are crossing the borders to be vaccinated. And by the way, that is also in sync with what the U.S. is doing. So the mandate is in place. It's also in place at the U.S. borders. Yeah. And I'm calling on all travelers, including truckers who have not been vaccinated, to go get vaccinated, because it's the right thing to do for their own health, but also for the health and safety of our economy.
There had been conversations, discussion about an interprovincial mandate, that truckers that were going even inside the country from province to province would also need to be vaccinated. Is that still going ahead?
Rosemary, if you recall, in the last election, we actually campaigned on vaccines and vaccine mandates. Minister O'Regan just last December announced that we are working on regulating all federally regulated sectors requiring vaccine. So there is ongoing work. As of right now, that policy is not in place, but no one should be surprised that there's work happening to get us there.
So it will happen eventually.
Minister O'Regan announced it just last December. Yeah. We campaigned on it last fall, and the work is ongoing to get us there.
In a written message, and I'm sure you saw it, the Premier of Saskatchewan, Scott Moe, says that he is vaccinated, he believes in vaccines, but he doesn't think that this vaccine mandate makes any sense. What would you say to the Premier about that?
Look, I understand. There's obviously room for a debate about whether you support a mandate or not. Our government, our party has been clear to Canadians that we think and we believe, based on the science, by the way, the science is very clear. There's not debatable. Facts are not debatable. Vaccines are our best way to protect ourselves and our economy from COVID-19. Vaccinated individuals are less probably to be hospitalized, less chances of being infected, and less chances of transmitting the disease. And we believe that critical sectors of our economy, the more vaccinated they are, the better it is for their health and safety, but for our economy. So I disagree with Premier Moe. And by the way, governments all over the place regulate their workplace for health and safety. It is common, it's typical, and this is another measure that we are doing to ensure that we're doing everything we can to protect the health and safety of Canadians. And by the way, Canadians agree with us. That's why almost 90% of adult Canadians are fully vaccinated.
Tomorrow you actually have a supply chain summit that you convened. It just happened to fall tomorrow to deal with some of the supply chain issues that have occurred through the pandemic. As you know, the Conservatives have been pushing the notion that our food supply is in danger, that there's all sorts of things that we won't be able to get. So just give me a sense of what you're hoping comes out of that conversation tomorrow, and whether there's any sort of fixes that you can actually control in this country, because it is a global supply chain problem.
Yeah, thanks for that, Rosemary. And I know Canadians know that since the beginning of the pandemic, we all have seen the impacts on supply chains. Some of us have ordered couches that took a long time to arrive. Some of us ordered appliances that maybe hasn't arrived yet. Toilet paper, flour, etc. So the supply chains has really been impacted by the pandemic. And as you said, it's been a global phenomenon. We see it all over in the U.S., in Europe, in other countries. And that's why I am hosting, along with my colleagues, other ministers, we're hosting a supply chain summit to discuss the global phenomena, but also to discuss what is it that we can do. And by the way, representatives of the trucking association will be at that summit. So there are things that we're looking at. Are there any investments that we can do that will increase redundancy and resilience in our supply chains? Are there any policies or rules that we can adjust or modify to help us maybe add more fluidity to our supply chains? So all of that, I'm looking forward to the input from the industry, from grocers, from shippers, from truckers, from manufacturers, and see what together can we do to at least do our part in adding more fluidity to our supply and resilience to our supply chains.
Yeah, it took me 6 months to get a washing machine, so I have experienced that problem myself. Minister, I will leave it there for today. Thanks for making the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Rosemary.